COVID-19 has made a profound impact on education at the CIA, and today I will be exploring the effects it has had on the students here. My name is Kyle Brown, and I have interviewed two of my friends, Liana Rosenthal and Javon Johnson, for this video. All three of us are upperclassmen, and while I have been off campus since August, they have both been on campus. I will begin with a brief overview of the plans set by the CIA at the onset of the pandemic. Shown are the different plans set during the first 3 months, March 2020 to June 2020. Liana and Javon both remember how we felt when the school announced the first plan back in March.
I thought it was really frustrating, but it also made sense at the time because we thought the 3 weeks would be enough to, pause and everybody get sick and then get better and then come back. That didn't happen. Considering that I left a full fish tank up and running, I thought we were coming back. And then they said, 6 weeks, and I was like, okay, I can make it happen. And then we never got more information. So, didn't really believe in their plan after that.
I think when it first came up and they told us 3 weeks, I was like, okay, they're not going to go back on it. It's 3 weeks. 3 weeks, we'll be back. We'll figure it out. I think everyone thought it wouldn't be as big as it was going to be. So I gotta say I was very confident in the fact that we'd be back in 3 weeks. But to our surprise, we did not come back in 3 weeks.
So as Javon said, when the first plan was announced back in March, we all thought we would be back in 3 weeks. But as you can see on the PowerPoint, that didn't happen, and the plan changed many times over the first 3 months. During the first few months of the pandemic, the CIA announced a public health policy called CIA Safe to prepare for when we eventually reopened. Rules set in this policy are shown, and included limiting campus density by only allowing essential staff and students, and enforcing daily health screenings. The most important and impactful of these was the policy requiring students and chefs in kitchens to wear face masks and face shields. While these policies were important and effective, they were poorly communicated and planned, which led to some confusion during our first inevitable return to campus in August. I discuss our first day here with Liana and Javon. One of the biggest things for me was going back. Those first 2 days were excruciating and almost impossible, miserable, because the kitchens were well over 90 or 100 degrees. Mm-hmm. No one's used to face masks and face shields. There's no plan. We're brand new. They dropped us with no information.
Our entire class didn't know to take off the film until the second day.
Everyone in the class had film on the face shields for the entire first day, so no one could see anything.
And then Chef Cat was like, can you guys see? Because I can't see.
Yeah, that was, the school's improving and improving, but when we came back, like you said, it was absolutely ridiculous. It was so hard to work in those kitchens,
So as you heard during those discussions, the first few days back on campus back in August were excruciating. When we returned to campus, there was very little communication about how these policies were going to be enforced, and we found ourselves in an unsocially distanced, boiling hot kitchen with masks and face shields. Those first few days were impossible to work in. I know myself and many of my fellow students almost walked out during the day. Production was disorganized. Everyone was uncomfortable. It was horrible. This is an example of one of the poorest executions of any policy that I've seen anywhere in this school. Shown here are some changes made to the CIA Safe policy after they were first enforced. Examples of these changes include limiting the number of students in each car entering or leaving campus, and enforcing an 11 p.m. curfew. During the summer of 2020, the CIA decided to move lecture classes online, and many of these classes have remained online since. Here are Javon's opinions on online classes versus in-person classes, which I myself and many people I know also share.
I do think that I think like most people, once again, it's much easier to retain information when it's in person. When it's online classes, it just feels like you're just doing work to do work. There's no incentive to unlike a class to go and learn how conversations. It's kind of just like, let's do these Moodle replies just to make sure I meet my requirements for the week. It's easy work. It's much easier than going to an in-person class, but for sure the information I can't retain as easily. It's like you can try to learn as much as you can about Mediterranean food or Asian food, but I think it's a bit harder to understand the information you're being given if you can't actually make it when you're in the class in front of you.
While COVID guidelines have impacted lecture classes, they have also impacted kitchen classes as well. Here is Javon again with his opinions on the matter, which I too share.
I think also we have to be fair. Like the situation is a bit different. You know, we're trying to limit contact and limit the spread of COVID. So we're putting food in like these plastic containers and all that. You know, production is very well, not production, but service is very hands off. It's kind of just like grab and go kind of stuff. I feel like a quick service restaurant almost. Pre-COVID, it's like we're doing these nice plates, giving people food with a lot more care. And then post-COVID, we're putting things in plastic containers, kind of saying, here, you know, take it and go eat somewhere else. Yeah, can't eat downstairs with us. It feels like almost demeaning to do it that way. But once again, I have to understand that this is how I guess we limit the spread of COVID, and it is what it is. I think there are other issues that also pop up with it, like our plastic usage. For example, I mean, like the first semester we were back, I was taking my trash out like every 2 days because it was just full of plastic, and that's something that just bothers me a lot more too. But I don't feel like I'm getting that say education, you know, with the whole switch. I kind of just feel like I'm making food to get my class over with and then moving on to the next. It's not that appealing. You know, once again, it's very hard to retain information. I mean, for the young generation too, who are trying to graduate in COVID and under these conditions, they're going to be so used to it that they're not going to be able to do like fine dining, you know, very nice plates or something like that. They're going to be used to throwing their slop in a clamshell and giving it out to people, and that's not a real chef. You know, that's a student who's being, you know, has to do like what they have to do and just putting all their food and then just giving it away. It's production for the sake of production.
Overall, while much of the curriculum of on-campus and online classes was retained, there is something to be said about the lost value of classes due to COVID restrictions. I, for one, felt like I did not get the full value out of my Meds and Asias classes that I finished in August. As Javon discussed, instead of plating food, we just slopped it into plastic clamshells and handed it out during service. I felt as if we were just doing production for the sake of production, and there was a huge disconnect between my education and the product we served. I didn't feel fulfilled by these classes in the same way as I did my kitchen classes before COVID. And I am personally worried for the integrity of the education for those who began education at the school during COVID and very well may be finishing their education during COVID. I think with the quality of education, or the lack thereof, offered by the CIA during this COVID pandemic, those graduating during this time are going to be entering the industry with a different and perhaps lower quality education experience. And I don't feel as if everyone who is taking classes during this time is necessarily getting their money's worth. I think in terms of policy changing, there isn't really much the CIA can do to address this. With the restrictions put by COVID, there really isn't anything to bring back that old kitchen experience while still abiding by COVID restrictions. I think in order to maintain the integrity of the education and kitchen classes at the CIA, their best move would probably be to just suspend kitchen classes altogether until these restrictions can be lifted. And I understand that that comes with a whole host of other problems, but definitely from the perspective of students, there is value lost in that education, and I generally just don't think it's worth it during COVID. Education here at the CIA has changed significantly due to the pandemic, and I think being able to hear the opinions of several of the students on campus is going to help give some insight on how we were impacted by it. That will be all for today. Thank you for watching.